Alright, so, Grim Eclipse. Now, I'm gonna just go to free mode, I'm not gonna go to Empire mode. But, yeah, and hello whoever's watching. Hold on, let me get my phone actually. Because for some reason this game doesn't like seeing comments on the stream. For some reason. Them damn old farts don't like seeing comments. Or something. So, hold on. Let me get my phone so I can read the comments. Because I forgot about that system where you can't really see the comments on the streaming system on PS4, so... But yeah, Grim Eclipse. It's, oh yeah, Haru, you gotta play this game, man. It's a really fun game. But, yeah, Grim Eclipse, what they could do for... Yes, the mobile game doesn't count. Mobile games don't count as video games. They don't count. But, what they could do is half RPG, half hack and slash. As I said in the Hitman 2 stream, they could do an RPG loot system. Not a looter shooter loot system, but an RPG loot system. They could do that kind of thing, like how Persona does it. Or they could do it like some other loot or RPG game. Or like some other RPG loot system that's out there. They could do something like that. Oh, alright, her. But they could also do for the safe world, besides like the shops and all that, they could have it where you would have a save file section. And you could just go to like maybe your dorm room, like your character's dorm room. And if your character goes to a dorm room, then that character will be able to enter that dorm room. And if you enter the dorm room, you could go to the bed in the dorm room, and then you could actually sleep on the bed, and then your character will automatically get the game saved. So that your progress will be automatically saved once you enter the bed. And then you could have it where when you're in your character's room, you could do some miscellaneous activities like reading a book, studying, or something like that, like how Persona does it. They can have it a little bit like that. But where it's a little bit different because in their world they're hunters and huntresses, or hunters and huntresses in training. And they could have it where in the actual, like where in the show, they have like the story of these 4 girls wanting to be huntresses. And he set up like I'm thinking they could do, they could follow the same story, but they would have to change it a little bit because obviously the story isn't too well written. It's mainly meant for action scenes and comedy. But it can have a story, yes. Especially Fallen Beacon. But, basically they could have it where it would follow a little bit of the same story that the actual show had, but it wouldn't follow it completely. It would have to make the story itself instead of copying it completely. Because the main story that we're given from the show is not that good. It's just not that good. So they would have to make their own version. And if they make their own version, then they can have it where it's between chapters 1 and 4, or volumes 1 and 4. And the story could be where between 1 and 4, you would have it where the characters are, at first, they first arrive in Beacon. But you would have, let's start from Volume 1, Episode 1. And we would call each chapter in the game, or segment in the game, by missions. Like, not missions, but like, they would be missions, but they would be different segments that you go to. And whereas in some games, they call them chapters or episodes. But in this game, we could call it arcs or missions. So let's start with Volume 1, Episode 1. We could call that section Mission 1 or Arc 1 or something like that, you know? And we could do it like that. But we could have it where the first mission would be, or the first segment would be called Mission 1, and then you would have the introduction to Ruby Rose, and you would first play as her, where you would play as her, and then she's being talked to by by Adam, or not Adam, but Roman Torchwick's goons, and then Ruby would just immediately just kick them out of the store through the window, and then completely like it'll copy that same scene from the very first episode of the actual show. And then once it would do that, you would have it where you would follow, or you would play as Ruby Rose, and you would complete that first mission as Ruby Rose, and then you also meet up with Glenn the Good Witch, and then you would also have the like you would have it where you would complete that first mission as Ruby, right? The first segment will be completely about Ruby. And then before you would actually move on to the next segment, which would be Mission 2, leading the player into Beacon Academy, Mission 1 would still continue where you wouldn't just finish off as Ruby Rose. But then you would continue to the next character by name, which would be Weiss. And then Weissney would carry on her segment as a short mission as well. And then you would carry it over to Blake, and then Yang. And you would introduce those four main characters. And then once that whole segment is complete, then you'd move on to segment 1, which would be mission 2, or segment 2, which would be mission 2. And then in mission 2, you'd actually get to go to Beacon Academy. And then from there on, you would have a system where you could actually choose to make a custom character. And your custom character could have multiple different options. One of these options could be where they could have, let's talk about their movesets. Their moveset could be anything really. It could either copy and paste from a character that's already in the series, or it could be an original moveset. An original moveset would be a kind of moveset that the player would make, where they would actually go to a mock battle real quick after they finish creating their character. They would actually go to a mock battle and create a moveset that way, and try to use different moves with their weapon, see which would work out for them, and then combine those different kinds of moves and turn them into different set combos. And then once you would complete the mock battle, each combo would be assigned to a button by the player's choice. And then that button assignment would add to the moveset of the character that the player created. It would become the player's original moveset. So it wouldn't completely copy the different moves that you see in the show by the characters already in the series. And you would actually have some originality to it. And it would actually be pretty fun. And so, Rooster Teeth, if you're watching this, please do something like that, because that would be really cool. Because I personally love character creations. But if there's going to be a moveset system, you should do something like that. Just do a mock battle system in the character creation, where once you're done creating your character, go into a mock battle immediately, come up with different moves that you'd want to use in a combo, and then assign each combo, once you're done with them, to any button that you want them on. And for example, let's say I create a 4-hit combo for the triangle button, and that will be for my strong attacks. And I'll come up with some slow charged up attacks for my triangle button, or strong attacks for my triangle buttons. And my triangle button would be using those sort of attacks, but they will be different from each other. But they will have a specific flow to them as well. Where let's say I do an ultimate downward slash. Let's just say that's the name of it. The ultimate downward slash. And then I could turn it into a, like from there, I could flow the downward slash into a lightning strike, where I bring the weapon back up into the air, and I hold it there, and then once I bring it back up into the air, lightning strikes down, and then I throw the weapon like a boomerang, and then the boomerang the weapon will just go towards the enemy, and then slash them like one time in the face, and then it will go back behind them, come back towards you so you can catch it, but on the way back it'll hit the enemy, and then you can grab your weapon and then be done with that combo. Like, just imagine that in regular speed. And then you can just imagine that, and then you can actually feel something like I don't know, you'd actually feel like that would be pretty cool, you know? And I feel like it would work pretty well. And yeah, they do something like that where you would create a 4-hit combo and you could add it to whichever button you want. You could also try to make it where the transition between the combos each would be as smooth as possible, or you would want to make it focus on style or stylistic stuff like that, you know. So it would be really cool to see something like that if they ever worked on it. But yeah, I'm just saying that's what I'm thinking they could do. Because if they ever do that, that would be really cool. But yeah, for character creation system in general, they should have what other actual character creators do in most video games out there. They should have the very in-depth options if it'll work out. Definitely, they should have that. I really do think that they should have that kind of thing. That would be really cool. And then the as I was talking about with the moveset, you could call the original moveset a combo creator. And the combo creator would be your own original moveset. And then the you would have it where if you're gonna like for the character creator, you would want it to be very in depth, and you'd want it to work well. And I would want it to be like very in depth, and I'm wondering like how they would do it, because at the same time, character creations can be difficult to make, I'm sure. But I feel like they could probably do it, but it could be the first time as well because I don't think that they've tried doing it before. But yeah, I think it would work out well. Um, yeah, yeah, an in-depth character creation system with combo creators, different facial feature options to actually change how your character's face looks, or you could change their body type, stuff like that. Um, you could also do it where you could change the color of each eye individually. You could also change the height, stuff like that. And then you can also, maybe, hopefully, design the weapon. Like where the player could actually make their own weapon, adding different parts and whatnot to different slots, or component, or connection pieces, or the connection tabs, let's call them that. Each connection tab will be on the end, or multiple ends, depending on what connection piece it is, or a connection module. Depending on which module it is, it would have the ability to allow the player to place different components on it, or different pieces on it. And you can place them in different spots, or like rotate them, or whatever. And then later on, you could change the color of them all together or individually. And then you could also like you could have where I don't know, like they could do something where you could actually create your own weapon. Take like component modules, add those, and then each component module would have a specific amount of component tabs or connection tabs or connection spots. And the whole connection tabs thing would play out where you would connect them onto the different components that you'd want to attach to the weapon on those parts. And those parts would be where you could add different modifiers to them, or you could add a dust crystal slot, and a dust crystal slot would enhance the different parts or the weapon in general by doing a certain thing, like adding fire damage, ice damage, or boosting the speed of the movement of the weapon, or the damage boosts, or anything like that. Like how some weapons in the show have it, where like Ruby's Crescent Rose can use dust crystals or whatever to boost its damage. And you could also create a semblance for your character, or a semblance. And then you could create an aura color, where when you see your character's aura, you could see its designated color. And that color could represent your character's heart, like their feelings from their heart. It could represent that, or just their favorite color in general. And so yeah, I think that would be really cool, honestly. But yeah, in terms of combat, do what Dynasty Warriors did. You have to do what Dynasty Warriors did if you want a good hack and slash gameplay in your game. If you want good hack and slash gameplay in a Grim Eclipse 2, then I would implement some cool hack and slash elements that Dynasty Warriors has. Maybe you could try something like that. But not completely copy it, obviously, but try something similar to what Dynasty Warriors has done, or Orochi Warriors, or Samurai Warriors. Basically what any Warriors game has done. Not like the spin-off Warriors games of like Hyrule Warriors or Fire Emblem Warriors, but do what Dynasty Warriors did. Do what this game did. And try to come up with something cool. But you could add your own twist on it as if it was all Ruby related. And could add different cool moves. And in the story, you would play as your own custom character. But not only you would get to play as your own custom character at any time in the game, or even for specific missions, you could also switch to, like, this is kind of wording it bad, but like, for specific missions, you could have it where you won't be able to play as your custom character, but you'll have to play as a different character, like Ruby Rose, or Glenda Goodwitch, or General Ironwood, or anyone like that, or Crow maybe, or Winter, or Weiss, or Jean, or Pyrrha. Man, oh man, whew, sounds good. Rooster Teeth, hire me. But yeah, you could do something like that, you know? Like Rooster Teeth, if you're watching this, you've got to implement some of these ideas. I mean, you gotta hire me, man. But, yeah. I'm thinking you could do that. If you really try at it, try to make a world of Ruby where you could play as either your own custom character or play as one of your favorite characters from the series by Monty Olam. The hit series by Monty Olam. No, the legendary series by Monty Olam. And then you could have it where you could play as many different characters. Not only your own character, but many others that are already in the show. And in the story mode cutscenes, you could have it where if you're playing as a character from the show, you can have it where your own custom character will actually show up in some of those cutscenes when you're not even playing as them. So they could actually have some involvement in the story and not just be there in the gameplay only and in the cutscenes when you're actually playing as them. You could have it where they're there all the time and you can actually interact with your own custom character if you're playing as a different character. Or the exact opposite, where if you're playing as your custom character and then you can interact with any other character already in the series. That would be something cool that you could actually do and implement into a new Grim Eclipse game. Or maybe call it something different. You could call it Ruby, Fragments of the Moon. Or Ruby, The World of Remnant. Or something like that, you know? And then, or Ruby and Red Like Roses. Something like that. And then, once you would do that, you would have it where, in the story, you would follow the base game, or the actual story of the show, but not too completely. You would have to change some things, because the story isn't too great, but it's okay. But you'll have to fix some things, obviously, because there are issues in pretty much every volume. There are issues, like such as Volume 1. It's pretty short because each episode is only like 4 to 6 minutes long. And it's not that long. And so you could have it where Volume 1 and 2 would contain from segment 1 to segment 6. And then Volume 3 and 4 will contain segment 7 to, or segment 7 through segment 14, and then so on and so on for the other sets of volumes. And each segment would have like a specific amount of missions, whatever. And you'd have it where you would be able to go around in the hub world, or the hub world could be Beacon Academy, or Mistral, or Vale, or anything like that, you know? Or Atlas, maybe. And then that's how you could have the hub world. And depending on which, like, academy you choose as your own custom character, depends on, like, where you're actually going to, like, which characters you're going to see at first, maybe, or something like that, you know? Like, where, let's say you can't go to any other academy besides Beacon Academy, and Beacon Academy would be the only academy they go to at first. Let's say a Volume 3 takes place, and then the fall of Beacon happens. Then, once the fall of Beacon happens, you could have it where, from then on, instead of actually following the actual story of the show from there on out, since Volume 3, or since the end of Volume 3, on to all of Volume 4, up to Volume 6, you could have it where you could have your custom character follow their own path, instead of following the characters already in the show that are going on their path. Like, you won't have to follow Ruby and her friends, or you won't have to follow Crow or anyone else. You could go on your own completely different path. Like, maybe you'd want to find out what happened to Ozpin and try to find him, or try to hunt down Salem, or try to find Raven and work under her wing. Maybe something like that. And you can have it where you can make your own decisions as a custom character. That's just what I think, though. Not gonna dig too much into it, though. But I'd want you guys to let me know what you think about this, though, because I do think it would be pretty cool. And make it open world. Just saying. If you'd want to, you could make it open world. But you don't necessarily have to. But it would be pretty cool, and it would make it more interesting. That way, the environments would feel more open and more interesting. Whereas a game with only set environments and not one completely open world, that wouldn't really make it too well. But since this this would be half RPG and half hack and slash, or maybe 75% RPG and 25% hack and slash, then you could have it where you would have an open world, put in the ideas I have already stated, such as the character creation, the player decisions of being able to do different things, and you can just choose not to follow a specific character or a group of characters, and you can go on your own path. Or you can actually follow them, or maybe if you want, you could follow the character, or like one specific character, or a group of characters. Like, let's say you want to follow Yang, or you want to go with Blake, or you want to meet up with Ruby, or try to save Weiss. And then, let's say you choose one of them. Let's say your choice is Weiss. How do you want to help her out? You could try to come up with a plan to help her out after you meet up with her. Or once you meet up with her, you tell her your plan on how to get her out of there. Or like anything like that. But how would the player know that Weiss is with her father, or like with her father? Well, it will be the player's choice, because if the player was still with Ruby, or Team Ruby, at the end of Volume 3, at the Fall of Beacon, then it would have it where that's how the player would know. But you could also have it where a player choice would be where the player would probably leave Beacon Academy before the Fall of Beacon would even take place, and then switch over to a different place, or just go on as a lone wolf. Maybe you could do that. Or maybe you could have it where you follow one specific character, like Ruby, for example, and then let's say the two of you meet up with Tyrion from Volume 4. Let's say you're in that small town or abandoned town in Volume 4. And let's say Crow is injured, and then you have to fight off Tyrion. And then let's say you arrive once Crow gets hit, and then you pop out of hiding, and then begin to get back at Tyrion. And then you are fighting Tyrion, and then as you're doing so, the others are like wondering how you were able to find them. And then you could have your characters say, like, well, I heard some noise going on. I was like, what was going on? Or something like that, you know? But, you could do that, or like, let's say, if you're following them, then let's say you had a secret plan involving just you and Tyrion, or you and Salem or something. And then you would have it where you could actually betray Ruby and her friends, or Crow, and then you could reveal your plan to them. And then you could actually betray them and become evil and try to take over the world, and you could try to defeat them. You could try to defeat Ruby, Yang, Weiss, Blake, John, Pyrrha, Nora, Ren, or a Crow, or whatever, and you could betray them. And then you could tell them about your plan once you defeated them, or while you're fighting them. And let's say you do that, and then let's say you're about to complete the final step of your plan with Salem, and then once you two are about to complete your goal, then Ruby and her friends all gather up with an army of hunters and huntresses to stop you and the army of Grimm, along with Salem and her minions. That is how you could do the story, with a wide variety of player choices. You could either betray your teammates, you could become the new hero of the world of Remnant, and you could also go to school with your favorite characters in the series, or you could have it where you can play as any character in the show and interact with your own custom character as either Ruby Rose, Yang Xiaolong, Wei Shni, anyone like that, you know? And then you could do something like that. And then a combo creator system for when you create your custom character. If you want, you don't have to do the combo creator necessarily, and you can just carry over a set movement system or whatever from a character already in the show. And if you want, you can also wear their kind of outfit too, if you want, as an option as a player creator. Or character creation system, you can do that. And then, yeah, you can also choose, like, where do you want to go if you decide to leave Beacon Academy in the beginning segments. You could decide to leave Beacon Academy, and then if you leave Beacon Academy, you could go to Vale, Mistral, or Atlas, and all those options are available to you right away. And let's say you go to Atlas first, and you meet Papa Schnee, and then he sees some potential in you to train you as a hunter. Or, no, was he a hunter? I don't remember, but, let's say you meet up with Winter, and then she trains you to be a hunter or huntress, whichever gender you choose. But, let's say you do that, and then she trains you over and over from time to time. And then, once she's done training you after a long time, it's then the fall of Beacon. And you're like, let's say your custom character says that they want to go back to Beacon and see how everyone is doing. And then Winter, decides to bring you over to Beacon Academy. And to, get to see everyone again after a long time. And let's say, once you get there, you decide to, go around and see, like, Ruby Rose or Sean Arc or anyone that's walking around campus and all that. And then once you actually arrive, though, you notice something feels off, and then you can smell smoke. And then you notice that Beacon is falling, and everyone is going to die if nothing is put to an end. And then Winter says, I'll meet up with you at the ship. Just do whatever. I'll make sure I won't let your friends die. And then she would say something like that, or along those lines. And then you'd be like, alright, I'll be back in 15 minutes. I've got to find Ruby. Or you could say, I've got to find Pyrrha. I've got to find Jean. I've got to find Ren and Orla. Or something like that, you know? Or, if you wanted to, you could also choose the path of not going to Beacon, or not going back to Beacon, and staying in Atlas with Winter and Papa Schnee. And then, you would have it where once the fall of Beacon would have already happened, and then, Weiss returns to Beacon or Atlas with Winter, or like once she meets up with Winter and her father again, then she'll meet you and remember you from like a year ago before you moved to Atlas. And then she'll say, so you're here. how come you didn't stay a beacon? What happened? And then you'd say either, well, let's say option one during that conversation would be, well, I wanted to get a different perspective. I wanted to learn something different. I wanted to learn from Atlas. Or you could say something else along those lines, or something like that. And then option two for that kind of answer to that question would be, I left because I felt different. I didn't want to go to Beacon necessarily. I didn't feel like I'd fit in because I'm a Faunus. Or something like that, you know? I don't know what I would put in that situation or say in that situation, but you could do something like that. And then she would then say, well, you missed a lot, actually, including the fall of Beacon. Just don't get in my way. Like, something like that, you know? Like, she would have it where she's pissed at you for not actually being there. And then you would just kind of stay silent out as she would move on and purposely bump into you by shoulder, quietly yet aggressively. And then once you see her go off or walk away, you're just left listening to Winter saying, I wouldn't worry about it. It was your choice anyway to leave, that is. And then the screen would just blank out to another scene. And then you would have it where, like that, you know? And then you would have to build a relationship with Weiss together to actually be friends with you again. Because she would feel betrayed by you. Or she would have felt like you abandoned her as a friend. Like, let's say, at first when you went to Beacon, you raise your relationship with her, and then you decide to leave later on, before the fall of Beacon would take place. Like, let's say, in Volume 2, Volume 2 would start, all that stuff with Blake would go on, but during that time, you could either choose to grow a relationship with Weiss or Blake. And then either one of those would have it where you could you could choose a relationship with either one of them. And since you would choose White, let's say you did, you build a relationship with her, and then you tell her that you're going to be going to Atlas. And then she comes out saying, what? You're going to Atlas? You can't leave. We've got so much to do here. And then your custom character is like, well, I don't really like Beacon. I don't like this school. I feel different. It doesn't feel right being here either. Especially not after what happened before. I can't go through that again. I'm going back to Atlas. It's nothing personal, really. It's just me. You could do something like that, you know? Like, you could do a dialogue choice like that. And your character would say that, after Weiss would be surprised that you're gonna just go back to Atlas. Let's say Atlas is your origin, or your homeland. But you had then gotten to Beacon, and then you decide, you know what, I'm gonna go back to Atlas. And then, let's say, you go to Atlas, you do all that stuff with Winter, the training and everything. Fall of Beacon happens. And then Weiss comes back after all that time. And then it's been a year by the time when she arrives back in Atlas at her home. It's been a year since you two had last seen each other. And then when she finds out you're with her sister training, she's shocked and upset, mad, sad, and let's say she feels like you abandoned her, and you would necessarily in this kind of situation, and you could try to build it up, and then you could have where the two of, like, let's say during this beginning segment where she sees you again for the first time after a whole year, after like let's say after that first day of being reintroduced to each other, then the day after she would find you in the courtyard, and then in the courtyard she'd challenge you to a battle out of anger and out of her feelings of feeling like she was betrayed or no, abandoned by you, the player. And then you could choose to either accept or not accept, or decline. I mean, accept or decline. And if you accept, the two of you would begin to battle. But then, during the middle of that battle, there would then be a transition to a cutscene where either Papa Schnee or Winter would show up during that battle between the two of you, and they would stop it. But only one of those characters would stop it, depending on which one you have a better relationship with. Either Papa Schnee, if you have a good relationship with him more than Winter, then he'll show up during that battle. But if Winter shows up, then that will mean that you have a better relationship with her. And then if Winter shows up, then she'll have a different dialogue piece. But if Papa Schnee shows up, then he'll have a different dialogue piece. And let's say if you have that relationship with Winter, then let's say she stops the fight, and then she'll say, you know, this is my sister after all. Why are you fighting her? And then you say, since Weiss doesn't want to say anything, she has you say something as if she's signaling you to say something to Winter. And so you say, Weiss asked me to fight her. And then Weiss immediately denies it, as if you were lying, and she doesn't believe you, and then she's just going to convince Winter that you're lying completely, when in reality you're not. And then Winter decides, you know what? If it's a fight you two want to have with each other, then go at it. I'll watch, and then whoever wins, I will fight both of you. Both of you, either way. I'm gonna let you fight. Like, no, I mean, Winter will say this. This is my sis. Like, okay, I'm getting mixed up now. Let's say Winter stops to fight. Winter says, "This is my sister, you know." And then you say, Weiss invited me, or asked me to fight her in a sparring match. And then Winter says, this don't look like sparring. This looks like fighting. As if it were a real battle. And then, let's say you dealt a lot of damage to Weiss before Winter interrupted the fight. After what Winter had just said, Winter would look at Weiss, like after a quick glance, she would then look back at you and say, those are some pretty serious injuries you just inflicted on her, aren't they? and then you would say, I never meant to attack her. She's the one that came out on me, asking me to fight her. And then, or you could also stay silent if you wanted to. And then you could also have it where maybe Weiss inflicted the most damage on you. And then Winter would then say, if she looks at you, she'll say, you know, you got a lot of cuts and bruises on you. Are you sure you can really beat her? She's my sister after all. Even though she has a lot of training to do, she seems to be doing pretty much better than you. Even if I trained you for a whole year. Pathetic. Winter could say something like that. Now, moving on to Papa Schnee dialogue for interrupting the Weiss and custom character fight. Let's say Papa Schnee comes in and he says, what are you two doing? This is not a battleground. This is a courtyard. And then he looks at you, the player, and then Weiss, and then looks at you and says, or looks back at you and says, you seem to be pretty strong considering how many hits you've landed on her. How about some training? Or no, he wouldn't say how about some training. He would say, you're pretty good. You're pretty good. And then, let's say, Weiss inflicted more damage on you than you did to her. And then he would say, impressive, Weiss. I didn't think you could do it, considering your temper and lack of knowledge. But you managed to beat him. Carry it on, you two. I'll allow it this once. And then, let's say, that dialogue piece is delivered instead. And then, you two carry out the fight while Winter or Papa Schnee watches the fight. And then once the battle is over, depending on who won, you'll get a different outcome. But, I'm carrying this out too long. But, yeah. I'm just gonna end the stream, because this is going on too long. Yeah. Wolf Dog out. Grim Eclipse 2, or Grim Eclipse The World of Remnant, Rooster Teeth, hire me, please.